Now back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
Help! I need somebody help! Not just anybody help! You know I need someone help!
And welcome back to The Law Show on CL 650. Today we're talking about immigration law. We have Gordon Maynard and Rudy Kisher from MKS Partners at MKS in downtown Vancouver. Just a quick question. Who decided whose letter was going to go first? Gordon, you get the M. Was there a discussion? Did you do rock, paper, scissors?
We went by initially, on age, not beauty.
No. Initially, it wasn't MKS. It was Maynard Kisher Stojcevic.
Yeah.
And Maynard is the easiest name to spell.
Right.
So people wanted to look us up. We wanted to have that name out front.
Right. So you got the hardest name at the end.
Yeah. That's why we're moving to MKS.
And so new digs in downtown Vancouver. Where are you again? You're right next to the Burke's building.
Right next to the Burke's building on the 9th floor, right at Granville and Hastings. Larger space. Our business has been growing. And
so what facilitates that? Is it all of the changes to the acts and what have you? Is it or just because you become leaders in this field?
I think we've been in the field now a long time. I mean, I know I've been practicing for 20 years, and Gordon, I'm not sure yourself there. You're at 20, almost 30?
Almost 30.
Almost 30 years. So I think, and we've been, practicing exclusive in immigration law. So we have a long history of clients that come back to us year after year. So.
Okay. And a lot of those would be companies trying to bring people into the country.
Yeah, we have a lot of corporate clients that, continue to grow. And with the economy being so hot as it is right now, with the unemployment being so right, they need people.
You're the go-to.
We are the go-to. We like to see ourselves as a go-to people.
All right. So now with that framed, your opinion on the new express entry paper that came out on July 26th. Now, before we get into that, sort of wind us back a little bit and talk about what express entry is and why it was brought in to deal with previous issues, for example.
Sure. And for the benefit of the listeners who haven't followed us every week.
Well, they should.
They should. They will remember that we've discussed that express entry was put in place in January of 2015, so just a year and a half ago. And the reason it was brought in to deal with what we call economic immigration categories. Mm-hmm. And so we're not talking about family class, we're not talking about refugees or humanitarian. We're talking about people who selected for their economic benefit. These are people selected under the Federal Skilled Worker Program, the Canada Experience Class, and the Federal Skilled Trades. And very quickly, federal skilled worker, that's the point system. That's people who come up to a visa office and say, my name's Bob, I'd like to immigrate to Canada. I'm 50 years old, I have a university degree.
I'm an engineer.
For 20 years, and what do you think?
Yeah.
And there's a point system.
Sure.
And the rule was that as long as you got 67 points, you were selected. Okay. Canada Experience Class was different. Canada Experience Class was for people who had already been in Canada as workers. And so they had worked in Canada for a year, and they passed a language test.
And how would they have been in the country?
Under a work permit or as students with post-grad work permits, people with LMIA work permits. So as long as you had worked in Canada for a year in a skilled job and you passed a language test, you met the criteria. That was a category that was like an on-off switch, quite a good one for students in particular. And then the third category, federal skilled trade, is like the Federal Skilled Worker Program, but is aimed at construction trade skills. So they give you credit for a trade skill rather than necessarily your education.
Sure.
And point system as well.
So that's a good one, too, because a lot of these people are very skilled. But
exactly. They didn't meet the Federal Skilled Worker category.
Right.
Now, the problem with these categories, these were good categories. And lots of people applied, and that was the problem. Too many people applied. So you had lots and lots and lots of applications coming in. Everybody who had 67 points on the Federal Skilled Worker would put in their application. Everybody who worked for a year and passed a language test would put in their CEC application. And you very quickly had lots of applications in the queue, but we were only taking maybe 40,000 principal applicants a year. And very quickly, the number of applications was outstripping the number of selected applications. And the result of that is you get a backlog. And so we had backlogs building up in the federal skilled worker category, 5 and 8 year backlogs. Mm-hmm. We had backlogs in the CEC category, backlogs in the FST category. And so the government tried different ways of trying to solve this problem. They put in quotas. They tried to get rid of the backlog by just passing laws saying we're getting rid of all these applications.
But didn't the Conservative government do that at one point? They just said anybody that's in the lineup, that the lineup doesn't exist.
Yeah, the Liberals did it first.
They did it twice.
So the Liberals did it the first time.
Yeah, the Liberals did it the first time when they brought in the 2002 Act. They said that they were going to get rid of the backlog. They were just going to put a cap on it if you didn't get processed within a year and a half. And the court said, no, you can't do that. You got to come up with something better. And they said, okay, we'll process the backlog first for a year and a half, and then we'll move on to the next one. Well, they didn't process it, and they tried to get rid of it, and the court said no. And then the law changed. And so when the Conservatives were in, they said, let's try it again. And they just cut out the backlog at a certain time. And that survived the court challenge. So they got rid of it the hard way, the unfair way. But something had to be done about the backlog. And then they came up with express entry, introduced in January 2015. And this wasn't new.
So a year and a half ago, basically.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And this wasn't a new selection criteria. This was just a way of managing the applications. And it was actually quite clever. And so what they made a rule that said nobody can file an application. I mean, we still have FSW, we still have CEC.
So all these silos, you still have them, right?
We still have them. People will still say, well, wait a minute, I qualify in that category. I'd like to make an application. They say, no, first of all, you have to jump into the express entry pool. And so everybody goes to the internet, they go to the CIC site, and they put in their information. It's called creating a profile. And the magic immigration computer looks at your profile and says, do you meet one of these categories? Are you FSW? Are you CEC? Are you FST? And if you are, you're put into the pool. You're assigned a profile. Okay?
So only people in that pool can be selected then?
That's right. From that pool, they are going to select people and give them an ITA, an invitation to apply.
Okay, so when you were saying there were hundreds of thousands of backlogs in these previous categories, is the pool now getting bigger?
The pool, and when they looked at it in May of this year, it had 57,000 people swimming around in that pool.
Right.
And they had pulled out of the pool 40-some-odd thousand people.
So not too bad.
Not too bad. But we still have the backlog from people that were in process before the pool was created. They're still working on them as well. So eventually that backlog will be gone, the pre-express entry backlog.
And you're flushed out of that pool every year. So you sit in the pool, but you can only sit in there for a year.
Oh.
And if you're not chosen within a year, you get flushed out. But you haven't paid a fee. Right? And they don't have to store your documents, which was another massive problem on the old system, is that they had thousands and thousands of boxes of applications from 6 years ago sitting there waiting to be processed with all old documentation that was useless because 6 years later, nothing's up to date anymore.
So the issue was, how do you pull people out of the pool? Because you had all these...
So who are the 40,000 that get plucked out, right?
I talk about fish swimming in the pool, right? And they come through every 3 weeks or so, and they fish out of the pool, and they pick out the fish. And it's not based on a first in, first out basis. It's based on the score that they assigned you when you jumped into the pool. There's another scoring system called the CRS, the Comprehensive Ranking System. And it's been in place now for a year and a half, and it assigns you points. And there's two sets of points. There's the human factor points, which are based on your age, your education, your Canadian work experience, and your language skill, your spousal attributes, and combinations of your work experience and language,
Would it be affected by if you have other family living in the country?
No.
It doesn't affect that?
No. If you have a spouse, they'll take points from both of you.
Right.
But you're not penalized for not having a spouse. You can still work just on your own points.
Sure.
But those are the human factor points. And the maximum they can be is 600. There's another set of points that are bonus points, also worth 600. But there's only two ways of getting them. One is to have an offer of employment and a work permit, but only certain kind of work permit. It has to be an LMIA work permit. Now, that's Labor Market Impact Assessment, which our regular listeners will know we've talked about.
And that is, you have to show that you're going to be not taking a job from another Canadian, right?
The employer had to advertise, make an application, and the LMIA system was completely revamped 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, in 2014. Completely revamped and made very difficult. And it's a system that's mainly aimed at controlling the temporary foreign workers in Canada.
Those are the Tim Hortons McDonald's workers that we heard about in the news, right?
Yeah.
Or the geologist or the executive.
It catches everybody.
It affects a wide range of workers, but the ones you heard about were the Tim
So, Gordon, let me just sort of like as a layperson look at this and say, if I'm in the pool and I don't have that bonus 600, I'm not getting out of the pool.
That's the problem. And so now in July 2016, They've taken a picture of what that pool looks like and who they've selected, and they're seeing certain things.
Just to back up, we're speaking with Gordon Maynard and Rudy Kisher from MKS Law on the Law Show about immigration law. Now, you have clients that are in that pool,
right?
And you get the 600. Mm-hmm. So how do you help them? What do you say to them when they only have the 600 points? Or
well,
maybe
first of all, they don't have 600 points. The vast majority of people in the pool have between 300 and 450 points.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the maximum is 600.
Maximum is 600,
right.
but few people get that.
Right.
Okay?
So what do you say to them who score highly on the sort of personal attributes but don't have the LMIA ticket?
Well, the question is, do you need the LMIA ticket?
Right.
Now, you have to look at what they've been pulling out of the pool, at what point level. They've been pulling out, initially, they were pulling out people that had the LMIAs or who had the provincial nomination. Those are the people that had the bonus 600s. So for the first few months of operation, the point score was up around 700, close to 800, that sort of thing, above 600. But then it dropped down to below 600. And now they're pulling out, it's never gotten lower than 450.
Is this because industry is saying to the feds, we need these people? Do they listen to what the economy is asking for?
No. It's just that they... Sorry, go ahead, Rudy.
I mean, it's based on the labor market, getting a labor market impact assessment, right? So when a client comes to us, to take it back to sort of when you're asking about when someone's sitting at our, in our office, and they come in and we do their calculation, their score point, do you put somebody, my advice to a client now, the government had originally promised us, had said that they anticipated the score point to drop down to around 350, to be a lot lower than it is. And it's been my experience that the government sort of underestimates the demand for their product. So, the score point has stayed above 450. So you have a bunch of people that are in that pool that don't qualify. So when clients come to me and they don't score above 450 now, I tell them there's no point in putting your application in generally. I say, you have to either go talk to your employer if you have an employer. You don't want, go find an employer. And then we got to work on getting you either a labor market impact assessment or getting you what's called a BC PNP nomination certificate that'll give you those 600 points, because otherwise we're wasting your money.
That's right. That's what I was getting at. It's like if you're below a certain point, there's no point being in the pool.
And the people that this is particularly hurting, we can look at two groups of people that are just classically affected by this. One is the foreign students who have come to Canada, and they've been here as foreign students in university, for instance. They've graduated. They've received a postgrad work permit. They've been working, and now they want to apply for immigration. They've been here for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years.
And they're integrated into society. They're speaking the language. They have friends. And
they have an employer who wants to keep them, too.
Right.
Those people don't have enough points. Typically, they're scoring 350 points, typically. And for them to get enough points to get pulled out of the pool, their employer has to get an LMIA to support their work permit. But the problem is that the LMIA system was revamped in 2014, and it's quite difficult because you have to show that you can't find a Canadian to do that job. And you're talking about really entry-level jobs out of university.
Right.
And the rule is you have to pay the median salary for that occupation in the region. People at entry-level jobs don't get paid that salary. Mm-hmm. So there's no mechanism in the pool.
And that's the advantage for industry to get new people, is they're less expensive, right?
Well, again, no, I disagree with that statement. That may be a motivation for some employers. But the fact is that people coming out of university, whether you're a foreign student or you're a Canadian student, you're going to get what's generally going to be regarded as a lower wage position because you're entry level. It has nothing to do with the employer saying, I want a low wage foreigner. I'm just saying I want a lower wage to pay. I need somebody with entry-level experience, right, to do some of these jobs. Exactly.
All right. Well, I think that's a great sort of backstory on where we're at with Express Entry up to now. And we've kind of been teasing this about the new paper that just came out on July 26th about Express Entry and refocusing on it. And we'll continue that conversation with Gordon Maynard and Rudy Kisher from MKS Law. They're partners in downtown Vancouver, and we will continue next on The Law Show on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.